Okay. Good afternoon, distinguished guests. We would like to begin now. So thank you for coming to today's event, Stemming the Tide, Innovative Tools and Actions to Aid Coastal City Adaptation and Improve Resilience. My name is Kana Matsuda. I'm with OPRI, Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation. And I am honored to be your MC today. So I hope today you will enjoy having some impactful exchanges on coastal resilience in the face of climate change. First and foremost, it is my greatest pleasure to invite Mr. Yutaka Shota, who is a Vice Minister for Global Environmental Affairs with the Ministry of Environment in Japan. He will be providing the welcome address. So please, will you come take the stage?
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you for coming today to the Japan Pavilion side event on strengthening the resilience of coastal cities. On behalf of the Ministry of the Environment, I'd like to say a few introductory words. The government of Japan is committed to reducing the country's greenhouse gas emission by 46% by fiscal year 2030 from the fiscal year 2013 levels, setting an ambitious target that is aligned with a long-term goal of achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Furthermore, Japan will continue to make strenuous efforts in its challenge to meet the lofty goal of cutting its emissions by 50%. And has developed policy tools to achieve the target. It is essential to promote a transition to a sustainable and resilient socio-economic system. With decarbonization at the core, Japan will promote policies that contribute to growth. Japan is surrounded by oceans and has prospered when they prosper. Based on the traditional Japanese lifestyle, which is about living in harmony with nature on the basis of the material cycle and ecosystem conservation. Japan has been promoting various initiatives to achieve the targets of the SDGs related to climate change and oceans, and has been sharing its experience and knowledge with the world. In addition, Japan has recognized the initiatives for resource efficiency and 3 Rs will contribute to the reduction and control of marine litter, and took up the issue of marine plastic litter at the G20 Environment and Energy Ministerial meeting in 2019, resulting in the adoption of the Osaka Blue Ocean Vision. In recent years, extraordinary weather events resulting in disasters, including severe flooding and landslides, have been occurring frequently in Japan. In this context, the Ministry of the Environment, together with the Cabinet Office, issued a joint message on climate change and disaster risk reduction in June last year. In the joint message, the Ministry of the Environment and the Cabinet Office emphasized that climate change and disaster risk reduction should be mainstreamed as cross-cutting issues to be tackled in all fields. The message also indicated that we aim to achieve the 3 pillars of the Paris Agreement, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Reduction, and the SDGs, simultaneously and realizing the synergy between climate action and disaster risk reduction, while promoting international cooperation by both public and private sectors. At today's event, representatives of the Ocean Policy Research Institute of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and the Stimson Center will be discussing research to strengthen the resilience of coastal areas. We believe that this event will contribute to the mainstreaming of climate change and disaster risk reduction, as stated in the joint message, and to the promotion of international cooperation. With regard to adaptation to climate change in general, I hope that we will have a lively discussion on the future, the direction and the prospects, including what Japan can do from a perspective of disaster reduction. In closing, I hope this event will encourage participants to connect with one another and find new inspiration for decarbonization and adaptation efforts. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Shota, for providing that speech. I think it gives a great example of why we are gathered here today, and particularly for those guests from Japan, where the country is surrounded by oceans. Next, I am pleased to invite Dr. Hide Sakaguchi. He is the president of the Ocean Policy Research Institute. So I would like for him to give some opening remarks to our audience.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me? And is it visible enough? Okay.
Yes, we can see you.
All right. Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon in Glasgow, and good evening from Japan, and good morning everywhere in the world. And Excellencies, distinguished guests, friends, it's my great pleasure to welcome everyone to today's event, focusing on CORVI platform, which are innovative tools and action to aid coastal city adaptation and improve resilience. Before everything, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Mr. Yutaka Shota, Vice Minister for Global Environment, the Ministry of the Environment, Japan, Ms. Monica Medina, Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs, U.S. Department of State, and the Stimson Center to co-host this event, and all the participants for giving your attention today. Again, my name is Hide Sakaguchi, President of the Ocean Policy Research Institute, which is called Shota OPRI, under the umbrella of Sasakawa Peace Foundation based in Tokyo. What is OPRI? OPRI is a think tank specifically aiming for harmonious relationship between human beings and the oceans through our scientific research, policy research, and advocacy. Today, I would like to introduce one of OPRI projects which we have been collaborating with the team of Ms. Sally Yozel, Senior Fellow and the Director of the Environmental Security Program at the Stimson Center, to conduct joint research applying the Climate and Ocean Risk Vulnerability Index, CORVI. CORVI is an innovative tool developed by the Stimson Center, which compares a diverse range of risks to produce a coastal city risk profile. The reason why OPRI chose CORVI and have collaborated with Stimson Center is that CORVI is specifically designed to help decision makers and investors build resilience by providing an assessment of climate fragility risks in a coastal city and pinpointing issues where resources need to be directed to strengthen resilience. So far, we OPRI have carried out a CORVI study in the Caribbean, Asia, and the Pacific and East African countries together with Stimson Center. And we are intending to expand the research more and more globally in the near future. We will share the results of the study today, and will launch a CORVI online platform which houses the information from the research. As we are already aware of, in last decades, the world has faced so many extreme weather events and disasters, and the damage are devastating indeed. Despite the vulnerabilities in developing coastal cities, especially in small island developing states, only a small portion of the funding has been invested in adaptation due to the lack of information and data for investors. According to CORVI estimate, projects for ocean-based climate action attract just less than 3% of total funding from multilateral development banks and global climate funds such as the Global Environmental Facility and the Green Climate Fund, which is obviously too small, right? And we need to change this by facilitating financing where it is needed. Then we definitely need indexed information considering many aspects such as index defined by CORVI. I hope that tools such as CORVI will prove useful in informing decision makers and community members of areas for priority actions. I believe that developing this kind of analysis will provide platform for dialogue and cross-sectional thinking in these coastal cities. Finally, I pretty much look forward to fruitful discussion today. Thank you again for our continuous collaboration and partnership. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Sakaguchi. Okay, thank you for your powerful words. Next, I would like to introduce our next speaker. It is my great honor to invite Ms. Monica Medina to deliver the next keynote speech. She is the Assistant Secretary for the Bureau of Oceans and International Environmental and Scientific Affairs. She is from the U.S. State Department. Now, if I may ask you to take on the stage.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and it's wonderful to see all of you, and I'm really excited to talk about this project because when Sally first showed it to me a few years ago, I thought it was an incredible tool. And as now a government person, I can't wait to help implement it in lots and lots of places. So thank you for the welcome. I'm thrilled to be here. And I'll start by telling a funny personal story, which was when Sally and I worked together in the government, we would often interchange going to meetings. And she was such a dynamo that no matter where we went, if I went for Sally, the minister would call me Sally. So Sally was Sally and I was Sally. Sally squared. It's really wonderful to be here, particularly on behalf of the U.S. government, because we are very pleased to be back. We have been absent, but not away, and now we are here in force as a government. We're here with 13 cabinet-level secretaries and countless announcements about the new initiatives that we're undertaking at home and abroad. And many of them include the critical topic that we're here to talk about today, which is the resilience of our coastal communities and raising climate ambition. For the U.S., keeping a 1.5 degree limit on global temperature rise within reach is imperative. And this moment begins what will be a critical decade for climate action. We're at a key inflection point. The science could not be clearer. And I was just meeting this morning with some ocean scientists who encouraged me to remember the urgency, and I feel it personally and very heavily. The impacts of the climate crisis become significantly more devastating as we contemplate going above that 1.5 degrees. So we're pushing ourselves to mitigate faster, but we also have to increasingly prioritize responses to the damage that climate change is already causing. And that means we need to address the increasingly frequent and severe impacts of climate change that we are already seeing today. And we know the coastal impacts are incredibly severe, and we cannot solve the climate crisis without ocean solutions. But there's also an ocean crisis, and we can't solve that without climate solutions. They're inextricably linked, and that's especially clear on our coasts, where the impacts of climate change include rising sea levels, extreme rainfall events, coastal flooding, even on sunny days, shifting fish species, and ocean acidification. We see this at home in the United States, where our large coastal communities are facing more risks with each passing year, but we also see it everywhere around the world. Investments in community resilience, early warning, risk assessments, and the like allow us to prepare in advance for the worst and strengthen our safety and security. And I want to pause a minute and just emphasize that. It's not just having emergency response ready for after the storm. It's preparing in a way that makes us less vulnerable in the first place. A community that's more informed and prepared will have a greater opportunity to rebound quickly from weather and climate-related impacts. What we refer to in this business as left of boom. We have to get farther left of those horrible events so that we can prevent as much loss and damage as possible. So advancing adaptation and resilience is a top priority for the United States, and just in the past few months, we've made major new commitments to build global efforts. At the UN General Assembly this year, President Biden announced that the United States intends to work with the U.S. Congress to quadruple our climate finance commitments to more than $11 billion annually by 2024. As part of this commitment, we also intend to further double the finance we provide specifically for adaptation to roughly $3 billion per year. And in order that every dollar of that pledge go as far as possible, President Biden announced on Monday a bold new initiative called the President's Emergency Plan for Adaptation and Resilience, which has the very appropriate acronym PREPARE. This is a whole-of-government approach that will bring the United States' diplomatic, development, and technical expertise to help more than 500 million people in developing countries to adapt and manage the impacts of climate change through locally led development by 2030. And again, Sally and I used to work in the agency that was the key weather forecasting agency, and it's important now that that agency and agencies like it all around the world begin to make climate forecasts a part of their regular forecasting products, because that's how we will get farther left of that boom. And PREPARE is intended to help bring those products, as we develop them in the United States, to experts around the world, and also to learn from the experts around the world who are also doing this work on how we can do a better job of it. PREPARE will deepen local understanding of climate risks, vulnerabilities, and adaptation solutions while supporting expanded development, innovation, and delivery of climate information services, decision support tools, and early warning systems. And we hear over and over again, that's what governments want, that's what businesses want, and that's what people want. Individuals in their own daily lives need this information just the way they needed weather forecasts 100 years ago. Through PREPARE, the United States will help countries and communities in vulnerable situations plan for climate impacts and mainstream adaptation into broader decision-making. And that's really what CORVI is all about as well. Additionally, PREPARE will work to mobilize finance and private capital to accelerate financing of adaptation measures, because they'll have more security in knowing that they'll actually address the problem, so the money will be well spent. And again, that's where CORVI comes in. Along with financing, we know that science, data, and I mean climate science and social science, and technical capacity are critical for effective adaptation planning. As we've learned in the devastating global crises of the last few years, a community that is more informed and prepared will have a greater opportunity to rebound quickly from shocks, be they weather and climate-related events, health threats like the ones we've just been through, or changes to the oceans. So I'm delighted to participate in today's session highlighting innovative tools, including the Climate and Ocean Risk Vulnerability Index, or CORVI, to aid coastal cities in their adaptation and resilience strategies. And as I said, when I first saw Sally talk about this product, I thought it was brilliant. And now that she's rolled it out in a few places and we can see the impact it can have, it's even more impressive. The index will be a critical tool in our toolbox to better protect the ocean as well as coastal communities that rely on them. And of course, the ocean is increasingly recognized as a source of climate solutions, from reducing shipping emissions to scaling up offshore renewable energy to protecting coastal ecosystems that store carbon and defending coastlines from climate impacts. And this is another area where the U.S. has come prepared, ready to commit to new actions and innovations to further the global action on our ocean. Another critical tool in this fight is marine protected areas. In addition to sequestering carbon and protecting coastlines, MPAs are also important tools to conserve biodiversity, replenish valuable fish stocks, and safeguard the health of ocean systems. So the U.S. is implementing a presidential directive to increase our conservation to 30% of our ocean waters by 2030, and we fully support conserving or protecting 30% of the global ocean by 2030. And we see ocean protection as a key part of coastal protection and a way that we can help make our coastal communities more resilient. And I'm so pleased to see the bold new commitments that have come forth this week here at the COP, including expanding MPAs and working regionally on MPAs. So I'm very excited to see all the ocean actions that are happening here at the COP. It's a wonderful thing. It's a great way to follow up on the Blue COP in Madrid. I also want to highlight that the U.S. joined the Ocean Panel as part of our commitments this week. And it's a multinational initiative that's harnessing the power of oceans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, provide jobs and food security, improve climate resilience, and sustain biological diversity. And as a member of the panel, we joined Japan, and we're very excited to be a part of this group of nations that's leading the world on oceans and climate and addressing the threats of climate to the oceans. I'm also pleased to tell you about one other event that will be coming up in February, another one that Sally knows a lot about because she helped to plan them when she was in our government a few years ago. It's called the Our Ocean Conference, and it will be held this February, the 16th and 17th in Palau. The Our Ocean Conferences, this will be the 7th. The Our Ocean Conferences mobilize commitments that promote marine protected areas, foster a sustainable blue economy, combat plastic pollution, support maritime security, advance sustainable fisheries, and tackle the climate crisis. And we expect that the ocean climate nexus will be a major cross-cutting theme of this year's conference, as will the importance of a healthy ocean to communities and livelihoods around the globe, including in small island states and in other islands all around the world. So we hope that you'll come to Palau and join us in this effort to raise our ambition on oceans and climate, as well as on climate in general. And we really hope to see more of oceans in national determined contributions as well, in NDCs. We think that's a critical part of making oceans healthier and part of the solution. So with all these new commitments and collective ambitions around climate resilience in oceans, I have to take a step back. And when I look at CORVI and I think about the commitments made at the previous ocean conferences and the previous COPs, we've made a lot of progress, but we still have much further to go. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from the other panelists about how we can improve the safety of our coastal communities and really of life as we know it, because that hangs in the balance with the health of our oceans. So I hope we as the U.S. can double down on our commitments to gather new tools, to use new tools like this one, to make new partnerships, and to move together in this decisive decade of climate action. Thank you very much, Sally, for letting me come here. Thanks for all the work you do on CORVI, and I look forward to hearing from the other panelists.
Wow, that was such a powerful message, and I think it's a wonderful speech emulating just how powerful an ally we have in America and the initiatives they have to offer in the fight against climate change. Now, she needs almost no introduction, but I would like to introduce her anyway. Ms. Sally Yozel, Senior Fellow and Director of the Environmental Security Program at the Stimson Center. I would like to invite you to give a brief overview of the reason why we are here today to talk about the CORVI platform. Please take the mic.
If I could, thank you, Connor, for those cameras. I'm just going to sit here and talk about CORVI. And let's start with our infographic. And while we're doing that, I just want to thank all of you for coming. I particularly want to thank Assistant Secretary Medina, who's a colleague and friend for many years, who's been really fighting on these issues. I want to particularly also thank Dr. Andrew Konda, thank you, who is from the Tanzanian Vice President's office. So grateful to have him join us. And thank you to our partners, Dr. Nico Makala, who has been with us all along the CORVI project and is a great partner from the Ocean Policy Research Institute. And Chip Cunliffe. Chip had the vision and the recognition to know that CORVI could be something and supported us when we started off at the very beginning. And my colleague Jack, who we will hear from momentarily, who has also been the heart and soul of this whole project. So, this is a great opportunity for us to introduce CORVI to a new group at the top and really talk about it as a decision support tool for leaders who really need to make smart climate investments to improve safety and security. Okay. Thank you. There we go. And so, as we've already heard today from Secretary Medina and Minister Shota and about why we need CORVI is depicted here, is because that really coastal cities are at the forefront of climate change. And we've all read the statistics, but the UN has said that almost 2/3 of the global population will be living in urban centers by the year 2050. And with coastal cities absorbing much of this growth. So at the same time, as you can see in this slide, the climate risks are just multiplying. Increasing temperatures, extreme storms, sea levels. They threaten the physical infrastructure, the natural environment, the economic security of city residents. And these compounding changes are also stressing the vital ecosystems upon which millions of people depend, fisheries for food, income, and protective habitats like mangroves, corals, seagrasses. Climate is also, and city issues are also, as I just noted, really degrading outdated infrastructure. They're undermining the economic stability and threatening the vulnerable populations, which you can say. So if we're going to figure out how to help and address these issues, we need to really look at it in an interconnected way. These are interconnected challenges, and it's critical that cities first assess and adequately adapt from land to sea to the climate risks they face. But as we'll hear, cities often lack that granular level of data that is needed. And if you look at national level data or regional level data, it just doesn't give you the granularity that you need to really get the full picture across. So, next slide, please. So with the support, with partners like OPRI and AXA XL, Bloomberg, Taiwan ICDF, and CLIC, CORVI is really stepping up to meet this challenge. And what CORVI does, as you can see in the wheel here, we really measure the ecological, the financial, and the political risks across 10 risk categories, which you can see in the wheel. But under those 10 risk categories, there's 100 risk indicators. That's a lot of risk indicators to bring information forward on. And so that really helps us understand at a granular level this holistic, through a holistic manner, what is happening to cities and the climate risks they face. And these issues cover a range of topics, including the vulnerability of vital infrastructure, which I just noted, the health of marine ecosystems, and the urbanization dynamics. And with all of this information, it will really help decision makers. And when CORVI data does not exist, we have developed a CORVI methodology that is really designed to fill those data gaps through expert surveys and interviews. And so as this map shows, we are currently doing CORVI in 8 cities around the globe, and they're being done in partnership with many of the people here in the room, and we are looking to expand and grow. And when I hear about Prepare, the new initiative, I get very excited, and we will talk about that with our colleagues from many of the SIDS and from Tanzania as we move forward. So I'm going to hand it back to Miko, but before I do so, I just want to say that, you know, financial resources are tight, particularly after we're coming out of COVID. And, you know, the emergency is upon us, and this is a tool that can help cities quickly get to that granular level that they need to make decisions, create their plans, so that they can gain the access and the capital to really push forward and build the resilience where it matters most. So with that, let me turn it over to, I guess you'll introduce our next speaker, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. I would like to introduce our next speaker. May I ask Dr. Andrew Konda, Director of Environment, Vice President's Office at the Government of Tanzania. I would like for him to give the next keynote speech.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. And for my friend from Japan, konnichiwa. Yeah, my name is Konda, as you can see from the board. Just here to share the situation to do with coastal situation in Tanzania. In particular, I will reflect in Dar es Salaam. Okay. Yeah. So Tanzania, like other coastal cities, we have several cities in Tanzania which accommodate the coastal belt. But in general, if you take both the cities and the rural area, we have almost a coastal line of 1,424 kilometers. But also we have the EEZ, Economic Exclusive Zone, which is about 223,000 kilometers square. But also the territorial water, it accommodates about 64,000 kilometers. This particular area, when I'm talking about the EEZ and the territorial water, to us, very potential for fishery business, and in that case, they do accommodate various investment opportunity. For instance, we are relying on fishing, processing, issues to do with ecotourism, ornamental fishing, malculture, cod fishing, and aquaculture are taking part within this particular area. But also there are also some other infrastructure like the fishing labs and so forth. This particular area actually is prone and is affected by climate change. you can see that the climate change has made this particular area to be disturbed in terms of the ecological systems, whereby we realize a lot of impacts which are caused by the climate change. Through climate change, we have realized the sea level rise, and through sea level rise, we experience intensive coastal erosion, but also we have experienced change in sediment budget, rising of water table, saline intrusion. There are some areas which were used formerly for agriculture. Due to stagnation problem, we realize now we cannot really invest or practice agriculture, particularly in Zanzibar, but also in some other parts of Dar es Salaam and other emerging cities around the coastal belt. But also we have damaged the coastal structure and the loss of coastal ecosystem. These are the critical damage which we really experience right now as far as the impact of climate change in Tanzania are concerned. This picture depicts what we really experience. You can see now the coastal erosion claims number of infrastructure, including even the settlement parts, are being now washed or taken by the water coming from the sea. This is the situation again. You can see the coastal erosion picture in Dar es Salaam. We have done some investment to address some of the problem. Like now, we have managed to come up with a few projects to build the sea wall. And in some areas, we have been able also to put some gabions, at least to address the problem which we confront, the sea erosion problems. So this, the picture taken from Tanga, but also we have managed to do the same in Dar es Salaam region. Some of other adaptation measures which we are taking in order to build the community resilience to climate impacts in the coastal area, that includes the issue of community participation in planting the mangrove tree, but also raising importance of mangrove in adaptation. These are the green kind of measures which we are taking to take apart from those infrastructure measures. But also we have been trying to define and to build the capacity of the community to conserve the mangrove forest. So we are working together with local government to some extent to make them being able to manage the situation. This includes community infrastructure upgrading programs. The local governments themselves are being engaged in infrastructure development, but also there is the issue of property formalization to make sure that we formalize so that we can be able to ensure some of the property owned by the community in those areas. And that's again include issues to do infrastructure and asset-based adaptation. Despite of what those measures which we have adopted, but still we see that we have some shortfall which jeopardize the capacity of the government and other stakeholders to address the problem of climate impacts around the coast area in Tanzania. One, we are still looking for the light model which will be able to conduct what we call the vulnerability assessment to the oil cost. That is a very critical aspect which we think if we could be able to adopt that particular assessment model, it will help us to be able. And I'm very happy today we have seen that through this intervention, we are likely to find the right solution as we go forward to address the technical part as far as the impact of climate change and coastal risk which we do experience in the country. But again, we see that there is a need for promotion of area-based management tools and integrated coastal management areas like ICSM and the Marine Spatial Plan. My country is yet to come up with a particular marine spatial plan, which can be useful when it comes to allocate various socioeconomic use of the marine resources. So in that case, we realize that there is a lot of degradation being caused by the social and economic activities along the coast due to absence of the marine spatial plan. Once we have that, it means it will be easy now to allocate the marine resource per suitable use, and that will actually be one of the adaptation, but again will be the most and efficient practice as we go forward to address climate change impacts around the coast. But also we are talking about absence of data systems for monitoring and error warning system. We think if we could have an appropriate and a comprehensive data system which can capture essential information to do with early warning, that will be very useful. We are working with the Tanzania Meteorological Authority, the TMA, to make sure that they do provide specific information related to weather conditions and occurrence across the coast, but still the problem we have is to get kind of customized information for particular local unit in that area. But the last and not least is an issue of monitoring and error warning system. We really need to have an appropriate monitoring and error warning system which will allow us to track and to monitor the occurrence, but also to recommend appropriate response as we address our problem. With that short presentation, let me say thank you for your listening and welcome.
Thank you very much, Dr. Konda. Okay. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Miko Mayakawa to come to the front. She is a senior research fellow from the Ocean Policy Research Institute.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I will be talking about our CORVI study carried out in Suva, which is the capital city of Fiji, from 2020 to 2021, in collaboration with the Stimson Center, University of Fiji, Pacific Islands Development Forum, and Ministry of Economy of Fiji. Pacific Island countries are at the forefront of climate change, and they are exposed to hazards such as more intense and frequent tropical cyclones, rising sea levels, and coastal inundation. In 2018, the BOE Declaration was issued expressing Pacific leaders' commitment to the regional security. It was stated that climate change remains the single greatest threat to the livelihoods, security, and well-being of the peoples of the Pacific. On Viti Levu Island in Fiji, where Suva is located, approximately 75% of the Fijian population lives in coastal zones. Suva, as the capital city of Fiji, is home to 94,000 people and the government organizations, the headquarters of most businesses and financial institutions, as well as regional and global organization. It is also Fiji's primary transport hub. The Suva study was carried out by asking a set of questions to experts to cover 97 indicators from the 10 risk categories in comparison to other 12 coastal cities in the Pacific region, as indicated here. As a result, we gathered 74 survey responses in total, And we also conducted a series of semi-structured interviews to enforce our understanding and analysis. CORVI risks are assessed on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being the highest risks. The CORVI risk profile for Suva shows that Suva has notably high exposure to extreme climate-related events, which is scored highest in the ecological risk dimension, as you see on the slide. We also noted a relatively high risk in the major industries category, which has the second highest score among all the 10 categories. This indicates that Fiji's major industries are vulnerable to climate and ocean risks. In addition, medium to high level of risk is found in Suva. Suva's stability, geology, and water, and ecosystem category, which implies that Suva City is still being exposed to a great deal of risks of landslides and coastal erosion. One vivid example is that the fact that the location of many government offices are in low-lying areas in the city. These organizations maintain extensive paper records that are often housed on the ground floor. This presents significant risk given the fact that Suva is an administrative and business center of the nation, as well as the hub of the Pacific region. In addition, rapid urbanization has resulted in an increase in informal settlers who are extremely vulnerable to climatic hazards, while populations living below the poverty line remain a crucial concern for the country. We therefore have the following recommended action areas. First, to develop climate risk-informed urban planning. Urban planning should be based on most up-to-date hazard information. Secondly, to pursue harmonized urban development and natural restoration. Suva is a rapidly developing city, and substantial amount of mangroves have been cleared, for instance, to create space for new infrastructure. There should be ways to seek green infrastructure and necessary financing for it. Thirdly, to enhance climate resilience of the tourism sector, which is the primary industry for Fiji. Income diversification and making use of environmental and climate adaptation levy imposed on visitors for such a diversification could be considered as solutions. Overall, we believe that these actions could feed into adaptation and resilience building measures under Fiji's climate change bill, which is currently being finalized. I also would like to refer to the 2 new CORVI studies that we are working on in cooperation with our partner in Bangladesh, Chittagong Independent University, Bangladesh. And we have also started a study in Dagupan City in the Philippines with Ecosentia. So I'll end here, and I would like to next invite the 2 mayors from these cities to talk about the situations in their city. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Maekawa. Just as you said, I would like to invite our 2 mayors. On screen, they have kindly provided a video message from afar. So let me pull that up. And I would like to introduce Mayor Mark Brian C. Lim of Dagupan, the Philippines. Please give him your devoted attention.
Good day, everyone. First and foremost, allow me to thank the EcoSentia Solutions and the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for conducting a study on the ocean risk and climate change of the city of Dagupan. This study, I'm sure, will go a long way in allowing us to analyze how climate change and rising ocean waters will affect the city of Dagupan, as it is a coastal city located near the West Philippine Sea. For the longest time, Dagupan City has been a catch basin of floodwaters coming from the downrivers of Benguet and other upland provinces. And usually during the monsoon season and during high tide, tidal flooding is prevalent in the low-lying areas of the city. Thus, this study, I think, is very important in allowing us to analyze the solutions that we should be implementing in the short term as well as the long term. Without the help of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation and EcoSentia Solutions, this would not be possible. Once again, from a grateful city and from Dagupeños, our heartfelt thanks to everyone, and I hope everyone will have a wonderful conference. Pleasant thank you and a good day to all of you.
I know he is not here, but I would like to give him a round of applause if that is okay. Thank you. And next, I would like to present you Mayor Rizal Karim Chaudhary of Chattogram, Bangladesh. He will present his video message next. Again, I would like to ask for your undivided attention to his next words.
Given the ambition, Bangladesh to be a developed country by 2041, addressing expected impacts of climate change, there is the need for an integrated approach to protect the coastal cities and the Bay of Bengal. Ladies and gentlemen, in this regard, a tool developed by Extinction Center called the Climate and Ocean Risk Vulnerability Index CORVI assesses the risks of Chattogram city and people, an index which could be helpful to us to develop national level to city level policy, planning and project to make Chattogram city more resilient against climate-induced disaster and vulnerability. In particular, this CORVI findings will give us baseline data to implement Bangladesh Delta Plan 2100. Finally, I must give a special thanks to CORVI, Bangladesh team, and all others from Independent University Bangladesh, Ocean Policy Research Institute, and Extension Center who were involved in this research project. I also welcome and gave a special thanks to Ocean Policy Research Institute and Extension Center to extend their collaboration in this research. Thank you very much and Joy Bang.
Okay. Likewise, I would like to give him a hand if it is okay. I would like to move on to the next agenda. Well, Ms. Sally Yozel, if it's okay, I would like for you to highlight the findings from the new CORVI assessment that took place in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, as well as Mombasa, Kenya.
Thank you, Kana. And thank you, Dr. Komba, for, again, highlighting all of these issues that are so important to Tanzania and Dar es Salaam. We're so grateful. And thank you to the mayors who have really highlighted on the front line what it means to them to face climate change. So with the help of the Vice President's office, we have conducted a research, a CORVI research for Dar es Salaam, as well as in Tanzania, as well as Mombasa and Kenya. And I'm just going to highlight a little bit what some of our findings from the report. And so I want to also highlight our partners on the ground. And again, thanks to the Vice President's office, who really helped us introduce us to many people to help make CORVI a success. But also our local partners were the Western Indian Ocean Marine Science Association, or WIOMSA, which is located in Tanzania, and the Coastal and Marine Research Development group called COMRAD that is in Kenya. And why is this so important? It's so important because working with WIOMSA and COMRAD, we were able to collect data on climate risks and conducted over 100 surveys and 70 interviews with experts in the region. And this really will help us understand the complete risk picture, as I talked about before. And you know, both of the studies really highlighted how urbanization and climate change are combining the vulnerability across the cityscapes, as we've already heard about Dar es Salaam. But let me just talk a little more about Dar, if I could. Dar is the 5th largest city in Africa. It has a population of about 6.4 million people, and it's an economic powerhouse. It's also responsible for 17% of the GDP in Tanzania and serves as really a primary entry point for trade and tourism. And yet, with this dramatic growth, poses all the challenges we've been talking about today. You know, on the good news is Dar is relatively safe from tropical cyclones. However, heavy rainfall and flooding, both from the land and the sea, are really a consistent problem. The CORVI risk profile showed us that in Dar there is serious reliance on industries that are climate vulnerable. And these are the industries like tourism and shipping and agriculture. In addition, these risks that we found are really exacerbated by the unplanned coastal development, marine pollution that contribute to the coastal erosion, which Dr. Konda just talked to us about, as well as freshwater shortages, degraded fisheries, which are working hard to bring back, and ecosystems like the mangroves. And all of this really harms the blue economy and the nature-based defenses. And the dangers that are really posed by flooding tend to be concentrated in the poorer neighborhoods, with 75% of the city population living in informal housing at this time. And it has a very negative effect on sanitation services. And the vulnerability, we saw it all in 2018 when there was the big, huge, like I think $100 million worth of damage from flooding. And yet, the good news is the government of Tanzania, as we just heard, recognizes these problems, and they're working to build resilience in Dar es Salaam. And they've invested in multiple projects, including projects with the World Bank to address flooding. And so what we're hoping is that, you know, through our CORVI risk profile, we really saw 3 areas that could benefit Dar es Salaam. First, establish a permanent coordination structure to integrate ocean risks and marine spatial planning into the master plan, and we've already heard about the marine spatial planning that's going on, so that's terrific. And secondly, expand flood adaptation programs with a focus on those vulnerable neighborhoods. And third, enhance climate adaptation in the ports and tourism and urban agricultural areas. So I'm going to end there on that with Dar. We also did, in our report, we focused on Mombasa, and we've spread the report around, so please feel free to take a look at it or go onto our website. You know, both of the risk profiles were released yesterday, and so please go to our web and take a look at them. And we really look forward to working with the Tanzanian government to implement this. And so I just want to thank you for your time, your effort, and all the help that we got from Tanzania. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Sally. Next, I would like to ask Mr. Jack Stewart. He is the consultant at the Stimson Center. He will be showcasing the new CORVI data portal.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for your remarks so far. So, as you've all heard today, from its first pilot studies in the Caribbean to the new assessments around the world, CORVI is expanding fast. And as this project has expanded, we have also been working to upgrade our data tools. And to this end, I'm delighted to introduce the new CORVI data portal. Now, before I do a deep dive into the portal and what it means, I'd just like to take a moment to thank our partners who made this possible, specifically our partners at CLIC, who you'll see at the back, for their collaboration in providing the software to power the platform, as well as the expertise to create it, and also to our partners at OPRI and Taiwan ICDF for their comments and support throughout this process. The portal, which you'll be able to find on our website by looking for this banner, as you can see on the slide, is a one-stop shop which provides data, information, and tools for users to complete CORVI assessments, visualize the results, and compare risks from city to city. Further, by automating the CORVI data process, the portal also reduces the amount of time needed to complete a CORVI assessment, allowing decision makers and leaders to get access to the data they need faster to take action. So right now, I'm briefly going to go through some of the views which you can find on our website, so you can see the kind of data which you will be able to find on the website. And as Sally said, I please encourage you to find it as soon as you finish this session. So as you've heard today, CORVI is structured around 10 risk categories, which are grouped under ecological, financial, and political risk. And these encompass approximately 100 indicators, all of which are scored on a 1 to 10 scale. This data is the data which you can view in the platform. So the platform contains 3 primary views. The overview, which you can see on the slide right now, a city scorecard, which allows you to drill down into a specific city, and then a comparison view, which allows you to compare city to city in the same region. Taking the overview first, on this slide, you can see the cities where we have completed or are conducting CORVI assessments. And on this view, you can look at how the risks for a city are concentrated, as well as also comparing different cities across categories. So for example, on this slide, I have selected Suva, Fiji, where you can see the 10 risk categories which Miko went into in her presentation. But if you want, you can also select one of the categories. Example here, I selected the ecosystems category, where you can see how different completed CORVI assessments fared here. The example here showing that of the assessments we've completed so far, Castries St. Lucia has the greatest risks from ecosystems. So obviously this is a really useful information, but it's also high level. So we've also provided ways to really delve into a specific city. So this is the city scorecard, which is available for every city we have completed, which really provides, as Sally noted in her presentation, the in-depth, granular view which decision makers require to take action. This includes, you can see on the bottom right, a distribution of all the risks for all the indicators for that city, the 1 to 10 scores for the category and indicators on the top right, as well, and then on the top left, risk stories from the city. And I just selected Dar es Salaam here as an example, but you can select any city in the platform. So taking this one by one, you can select any of the 10 categories. In this case, I selected ecosystems, to view the indicator scores. And the indicator scores you see here pop up on the right. You can also access risk stories. So as you can see here on the previous slide, the dots around Dar es Salaam if you hover over those dots, you will see snippets of stories about what these risk scores and data mean on the ground. How are they impacting the security and the livelihoods of citizens of this city, and where some of the solutions lie. And finally, if this has piqued your interest, you can navigate very easily to the full risk profile, which you can read in the reports which are on your chairs, which provide a much more in-depth view of not only the risks, but also resilience planning, which is already underway, and the solutions which we can all work together to achieve. The final view in the CORVI data portal is a side-by-side comparison view where you can select 2 cities within a region. As an example here, I selected Dar es Salaam and Mombasa. As you can see on the chart, on the butterfly chart to your right, it allows you to look at 2 cities. And this is particularly useful for international financial institutions which are looking to, as we've heard all this week, drive investment to where it is needed most. And this is just one way in which our data can be used to help to do that, both from city to city, but also into particular indicators in a category. So I'm going to stop right here. Again, I encourage you all to visit the CORVI website, where you'll be able to access this data and click around with it yourself. And thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Jack. Before we move along, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Chip Cunliffe. He will share how CORVI can be used to target adaptation investment. He is the Biodiversity Director at AXA XL. So, please come.
No, I don't have any slides. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and indeed, thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to try and be as quick as I can. But look, I'm delighted that we've got this far, not just today, but of course, in terms of CORVI as well. I remember sitting at a table in Malta, where I sat next to Sally in 2017, and we started discussing this idea of trying to interpret and determine how we can create data sets that allow cities to understand the vulnerabilities to their own populations and to governments, etc. And here we are today, and what's fantastic actually is that looking at the portal, it really does take it to the next level. So the reports are great, but that's a lot of reading. Now we're able to see this from a sort of a data perspective, that's hugely important, certainly for us within the insurance industry as well. I think, I'm very aware of the fact that, we're all aware of that, the fact that, trillions of dollars of assets are found in and around the major cities of the world, and indeed not even just the major cities, all communities that are based around coastlines. As an insurer and an investor, we are really keen to understand the the hazards and the vulnerabilities to our own investment portfolio, but also to those of our clients as well. Within the insurance industry, we have a risk equation, which is focused on hazard, vulnerability, and exposure. We do a huge amount of work. We have a very good understanding, actually, of hazard, as I'm sure you're quite well aware, given the propensity and indeed what's actually happening with the intensity of tropical cyclones around the world. But the vulnerability side of things is fairly poorly known and fairly poorly understood. So from an investment perspective, as well as us being able to develop risk management mechanisms and indeed risk parametric and other insurance mechanisms, then this kind of data will help us to understand and to really deliver for those cities and indeed for those clients that we have, because some of our clients do, of course, include governments. it allows us to better understand the vulnerability of that for us. So I think CORVI is a step change. And indeed, I think as we start to move, not just from the Caribbean into what we've heard today in terms of Mombasa and Dar, etc., it's a really critical step that we are starting to take in understanding the impacts for LDCs and for SIDS, of course, as well. And we know that they are going to be the most impacted societies from climate change. I think I've talked about the way in which decision making will change. I certainly understand and believe that we can utilize this tool within the business, and indeed what we need to do then is to take this out and move this further into the insurance community as well as the investment community as well. I co-chair with Karen actually the Ocean Risk and Resilience Action Alliance, and we are very aware of the fact that when we're looking at and talking about adaptation and mitigation of climate change impacts, we need to include and understand the importance of nature-based solutions. So how we utilize and how we integrate mangroves and reefs and other ecosystems into our thinking. And I think that actually what we have here is starting to understand, the implications for cities. Actually, tomorrow AXA will launch the Coastal Risk Index, which is a sort of happily sits alongside CORVI, providing a better understanding of the importance of coastal ecosystems into our risk models, which is a first. And so by integrating coastal ecosystems on a worldwide basis into our risk models, alongside the CORVI tool, I think we're then starting to really drive this dial forward in understanding the risk profile to cities and to assets around the world. I'm delighted that we've been able to come here. I've been delighted to listen to everybody today, and I'm really excited to see that this is going from strength to strength, really pleased that we can move. Well, we are moving the dial forward. So thank you, Sally. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, unfortunately, we are coming to a close with our session, but I don't deserve to close the session. I think Sally should be the one to do so. So please, would you give your final message to our attendees?
I suspect you'll see me sitting here a little too long today. But listen, thanks everyone for attending today and for all the support. Chip, thanks for the confidence in us and the vision in CORVI when we first started, and Monica for all your support over the years, and Tanzania, and of course our partners here, the Ocean Policy Research Institute. Karen is not sitting there anymore. Well, what I was going to do as I close was just say, we were in another event on SIDS and LDCs talking about why this is all important, and our colleague from ORA, Karen, said that, we need to build back the blue. We need to build back ocean because the ocean is in code red. So build back blue because it's in code red. And I think that's a perfect way to end today. And thank again all of you. And please, if you want to learn more, visit our CORVI website. Thank you.